Good morning, everyone. Thank you for having me here this morning. I'm going to share with you some real-life results of how the businesses in Westerly, Rhode Island, specifically the community of Misquamicut, responded after the storm in October of 2012. We had 29 businesses that were devastated. 24 decided to just rebuild on the same footprint. 5 took a very different path. And these are some of the factors that they considered. How much time was it going to take them? They all wanted to be open by Memorial Day. If they were going to do any major design changes, that might require them to miss a season or two. Obviously, lost season, lost income, not a good combination when you're having to come up with money to deal with repairing your property, and then you add to that losing a season or two. The 50% rule, if your business is destroyed in value by more than 50%, you have to rebuild to the new codes. Everybody wanted to be at 49% or below. No one wanted to have to deal with that. What will the insurance payout be? This was one of the biggest problems. The flood policy was saying it's not ours to cover, it's wind damage, and the wind policies were saying it's flood damage, and nobody wanted to pay. And the businesses wanted to just get going and start repairing, and they had no working capital to do so. And many of them ended up in court, which is additional money, frustration, time. It was a nightmare. Our Chamber of Commerce did raise $430,000, and for a lot of the small businesses, we have no national chains in our Misquamicut community. That working capital is what got them going and sustained them every month when we delivered those checks. How much personal investment was going to be needed, and would they even live long enough to get a return on the investment? How difficult would the permitting process be? I will tell you that CRMC worked wonderfully with the building folks in our community, as well as DEM, to go site by site to each business and try and simplify that daunting process as much as possible. And of course, when's the next major storm? If I go and invest $100,000, $300,000 of my own money, is it for naught? Is it going to be another storm hitting me in another year or two, and I will never be able to recover all this investment? For us in our community, there were many third-generation small businesses, so their family legacy, they want to pass the business on to the next generation. That was a huge factor. Some of them have been through previous storms, or in this case, from this gentleman, the hurricane in 34, I believe it was, so very emotionally connected, a lot of pride, a lot of Yankee, determination to come back and fight this. But we've got some examples of rebuilding after the storm. This is a retail store, and the first few slides are going to be basically stores that got up and running on exactly the same footprint. So this is what it looked like during the storm, or a day or so after. If you can see the water line, he's pointing out about 4 feet up. And this building is located about 1.5 blocks from the beach. That's their new facade. It looks like a castle, like they're prepared for anything. You don't see windows, you don't see a lot of anywhere where water came in, they basically tried to eliminate that. Sandy's Lighthouse is a nightclub, and they have indoor and outdoor seating. That was after the storm. Now they have new exterior, a lot more outdoor dining. They've done things a little bit differently, but on the same footprint. Alfie's is a small beach store, basically same footprint. No real changes here in terms of level. None of them went any higher. ABC Resort is a combination property of timeshares and condos, and there's some office space as well as a pool building. You'll see the building in the middle, the 2 buildings on each side are connected by a very large deck that was very popular with their patrons for sunbathing and congregating and grilling and all that. That deck broke away during the storm and basically blew backwards into what was their pool building and smashed through the pool building doors and windows that were facing the ocean, and everything that you can imagine ended up filling that pool. That pool was filled all 12 feet with debris and sewage and a whole variety of items. So when they rebuilt, they eliminated the deck. They felt that that was that it was a detriment to have it. They also took the doors that used to be 2 entry doors on the shore side to the pool building, and they moved them along to the side, thinking that it's one less access point for the water to be able to come through where they might be vulnerable. This is an example of a company that did have business interruption insurance. They had no insurance on their pool building. So essentially the $43,000 that our Chamber of Commerce donated to this particular business bought their pool building, repaired all the repairs that they needed. They are an example of one where the wind and flood policies fought. And because they are considered a residential property, because it's a timeshare, they're limited to how much their insurance policies cover them. So they have some unique challenges there. The Windjammer right next door is a large banquet facility in Baird. You can see the images before the storm, very depressing. After the storm, they've rebuilt. This is what faces the road, and this is what faces the shore. Very similar, large patio, a lot of outdoor dining, and they're doing very well. Then we have examples of two businesses that really are looking ahead to adapt, and they did things very, very differently. They basically said goodbye to their buildings, which was a very difficult decision for them to make. But rather than rebuild, they went with trailers. So Sam's Snack Bar originally looked like this before the superstorm. That's what it looked like after. There was no evidence that it had ever existed. This is Sam's today. To the right, you see a deck area that has some picnic tables, and there's some steps that go from the beach up to that area, and some overhead protection from the sun. To the left, you see their blue trailer, which is a custom trailer that they used money that we provided them with to go and put the down payment and get that working for them over the winter months. So they now operate out of that trailer. And then what you don't see in the picture is behind another unit for storage, refrigeration, and some restrooms. What's interesting too, though, look at the sales. 2012 gives you an idea of what they did. God bless you. Oh, sorry. Old habits do kind of 2013, they were up and running Memorial Day weekend, but their profits were down 40%, and they were down 40% for a number of reasons. They had less tables. Their new footprint allowed them for one less picnic table, which is 6 less seats times 8 to 10 hours a day of that turning over times a 10-week season. They had 9 steps that they now had to use to get up to the deck instead of the 3 that they used to have. That was problematic for them, but because the dune was raised back and they had less space to work with, now people who were older, who tend to patronize this particular beach, had difficulty dealing with the steps. It was inconvenient. It was a struggle for them to go up the steps, and some folks just decided to find other places to go. Their parking spaces, which is another source of revenue, some days they charge 10, some days 20, depending on the weather, and if it's a weekend, they were reduced from 55 spaces to 33. Again, when you calculate over a season, that significant loss, when you're charging money for that, it calculates into real dollars for a small business person. These are direct quotes from the business owners. He misses the building. He spent $180,000 out of pocket after insurance and after what the chamber gave him. Business is still down, and he'll never make it back in his lifetime. It's very sobering. This is me standing in front of the Little Mermaids Cafe about a week after the superstorm. That's Little Mermaids today with their trailer. Again, similar concept. Trailer, deck, picnic tables. The reality is, if a storm is coming, they can unplug and they can drive away. So they're protecting their sales, they're protecting their future in terms of their family and their livelihood. And of course, they miss the building, but it's all about survival and having an income. Maria's Seaside Cafe is one that just this week tore down half of their building. Why did they wait 2 years? It was a very long process dealing with designers that came up with an elaborate plan that in the end, they simply couldn't afford. The numbers didn't make sense to construct this huge building that would sustain itself better for future storms, but that they would not get a return on their investment quick enough relative to the investments that are required. So they scaled back. Rather than do what was proposed, a $10 million building, they now have hired a second set of architects, and all this takes time and money, and now they're on a scaled down version, which will be renovating a third of the building and 2/3 new construction, and just that process alone took 7 months. So you can see here what the differences are from what it looked like before in terms of dining and number of employees to what it's going to look like when they're done. And they also have obviously lost some operating revenues over these last 2 years, and design fees, and significant state sales and meals tax loss to our local economy. And then we've had 2 businesses that dramatically changed their facility structure to be more resilient. The Andrea Hotel, this has been in business for 3 generations, arguably the most hard hit in our community. Really hard to look at the pictures of the Andrea. This is the Andrea today. What's missing? All the hotel rooms, the lobby. Their restaurant is the building that you see here is what remained, which was a portion of their kitchen. They are essentially operating under a giant white tent on a cement slab. It is a much simpler business model. That is the fireplace that used to stand in the lobby of their reception area at the hotel, so they were able to salvage that, and they kept it where it was as a symbol. But their model is all outdoors, and is it working? You bet it's working. Sometimes less is more. When you look at these numbers, you see that they're doing okay. They're pretty pleased with the end result. They were tempted to rebuild. They were tempted to invest millions of dollars into a new facility because of their family legacy, but they didn't. Less headaches, less staff, more profit. Again, to the state, it's an economic impact. We don't have those hotel rooms, so those people aren't staying overnight and patronizing all the businesses, but to that one business, it was a success story and something that they needed to do to sustain themselves, despite the painful loss of jobs, friends, family. When you read this, they say if they could do it again, they wouldn't have spent the $70,000 on the architects to come up with this fancy plan to rebuild the hotel and the restaurant. Now that they have a couple seasons under their belt and they see how profitable they are, they're going to stick with this very simple model. Patty's Beach, again, devastating. You look at the images, Patty's today, very portable. These are portable dining units that can be put in storage pods very quickly. You don't see roofs, you see tarps that can be taken down and put away very quickly. It's a very sleek, simple design. Most of the dining is outdoors. It's very flexible in nature, and they've protected their asset and their investment for the future. Patty's sales, how did it affect them? You've got some numbers there that you can take a look at and see. Good decision on their part. No regrets from Patty's. So what have they learned? They've learned, consider all your options. Don't just do the knee-jerk rebuilding. It doesn't necessarily work for everybody. Ask for everything, all types of grants and favors and special exceptions. Flexibility in terms of your design, in terms of your business model. Small adjustments. Some of these were small adjustments, but they ended up in big savings. Less is more definitely is a theme. Mental health, I throw that in there because a lot of these folks are really, we're dealing with post-traumatic stress disorder, trying to make these huge life decisions in a very difficult time period. And review your insurance policies carefully. They didn't know what they had. Some of them didn't have insurance. Some of them didn't have adequate insurance. It was just a real challenge. But they're better prepared for the future. They know it's not over. It's just a matter of when. And I thank you very much. I hope that these examples show you that there are positive ways to adapt, that you can save your shoreline community by imposing some changes, some big and some small. And we are very pleased that at least 15% of our businesses did some really big things so that they'll be here after the next storm for sure. Thank you for your time this morning.